Lady, you ever have one of those days where everything gets under your skin? The rude driver, the passive aggressive comment, that email you shouldn't have opened at 7 a.m. But here's the thing. It's not about what happens to you. It's about how you carry yourself through it. When you learn to act as if nothing bothers you, you're not being fake. You're being in control. And that's not weakness. That's power. You ever notice how the loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest? There's this idea that being bothered, being visibly angry or upset somehow proves we care. That raising our voice shows passion. That snapping back means we're standing up for ourselves. But I'll tell you what really speaks volume is a calm in the face of chaos. Calm when you've got every reason to explode. Calm when someone's trying to pull you into a storm they created and expect you to drown in. That is power. I get it. Staying calm isn't always easy. Life presses every button you've got. People push boundaries, situations test your patience. And sometimes it feels like the world's just poking you, daring you to react. But here's the truth. Your reaction is your responsibility, not your boss's attitude, not your friend's backhanded comment, not your partner's bad mood. Yours. And that's not weakness. That's strength. That's maturity. That's self-mastery. We've all heard that phrase, act as if nothing bothers you. And it can sound a little fake, maybe even passive, but it's not about pretending. It's about being intentional. It's about showing up in a way that says, I know who I am, and I won't be moved by every little gust of wind. Because let's face it, if we let every irritation steer us, we're not driving our lives. We're just passengers in someone else's chaos. Think about the most composed people, the ones who keep their cool when everyone else is losing it. You respect them, don't you? You watch them closely because something about their energy is magnetic. That's not by accident. They've trained themselves to respond, not react. They've chosen calm as their baseline, not because life is always smooth, but because they know the cost of giving their peace away. Let me be clear. Staying calm doesn't mean you don't feel things. You can still get angry. You can still care. You can still draw a line, but you do it from a place of centeredness. You do it with control. Because when you act from emotion, especially in the heat of the moment, you're giving your power away. You're letting someone else press a button and boom, you explode on cue. That's not power. That's being played. Now imagine flipping that. Imagine someone's trying to get a rise out of you. They're escalating, pushing, maybe even insulting you. And you don't flinch. You breathe. You hold eye contact. You answer when you're ready, not when you're provoked. That's disarming. That's commanding. And most of all, it's protective. It shields your energy from being hijacked. Because look, not everything deserves your fire. Not every comment needs a comeback. Not every situation requires you to throw your piece on the table like a poker chip just to prove you've got feelings. The most powerful person in the room isn't the one yelling. It's the one who doesn't need to. It's the one whose presence alone demands respect. Not because they're intimidating, but because they've mastered themselves. And when you start showing up like that, you'll notice something. People talk to you differently. They handle you differently because they can feel that you won't be easily shaken. They sense that you're grounded. And grounded people are not easy to manipulate, not easy to trigger, not easy to control. So the next time life throws a jab, pause, breathe, hear it, feel it, but don't let it move you. Train your calm like a muscle, because when you've got calm, you've got clarity, you've got choice, you've got power. That's the kind of unbothered we're aiming for. Confidence doesn't come from being the loudest in the room or from always having the last word. It doesn't show up just because you have a title in front of your name or a big following behind your handle. Real confidence, the kind people notice without you saying a word, comes from control, not control over others, not manipulation, not dominance. I'm talking about control over yourself. When you know how to manage your emotions, when you can stay grounded, when things get heated, when you can choose your words instead of spilling whatever shows up first. That's confidence, because it tells the world, I don't have to perform. I don't have to prove anything. I've got me, And the people around you, they can feel that it's not arrogance. It's not ego. It's a steady, quiet certainty that speaks louder than any outburst ever could. See, most of us grew up thinking confidence was something external. You had to do something to feel it, win something, say something, prove something. And yeah, achievements matter, progress matters, but confidence rooted in circumstances. That kind of confidence is shaky. One bad day, one tough conversation, one unexpected rejection, and boom, it crumbles. But when your confidence is built on how you respond, how you carry yourself, not how life treats you, it becomes unshakable. People will try you. Life will test you. And when it does, it's tempting to let emotions run the show. But every time you choose to stay composed, every time you resist the urge to react impulsively, every time you stay in control of your tone, your body language, your energy, you're reinforcing confidence from the inside out. Now, let's be real. Control doesn't mean you're robotic. It doesn't mean you never feel hurt or angry or frustrated. Of course, you do. You're human. But control means you decide what to do with those feelings. You don't leak them out everywhere. You don't let other people dictate the version of you that shows up. That's what self-respect looks like. Think about the last time you reacted in a way you weren't proud of. Maybe you snapped at someone or gave in to the heat of the moment. We've all done it. And what follows? Usually regret. You replay it in your head thinking, man, I should have handled that better. But when you're in control, you don't have to clean up emotional messes. You get to walk away with peace, with clarity, with your dignity still intact. And that's the thing. Control gives you peace. You ever notice how much more grounded you feel after you pause, take a breath, and respond with intention? That's not weakness. That's emotional strength. That's maturity. And guess what? That kind of strength makes people trust you. They feel safe around you. They know you won't blow up or break down just because things get uncomfortable. Confidence built on control also gives you options. When you're reactive, you only have one lane, emotion, but when you're composed, you've got choices. You can stand firm. You can walk away. You can ask a question instead of making an accusation. You get to lead the moment instead of being led by it. And the more you lead with control, the more your confidence grows. Not because everything's going right, but because you know you'll handle it, whatever is. You start trusting yourself in tough moments. You stop fearing confrontation because you know you won't lose yourself in it. You stop shrinking back because you know you won't lash out. So no, acting as if nothing bothers you isn't about faking it. It's about choosing where your energy goes. It's about refusing to let every challenge pull you off balance. It's about anchoring yourself so deeply in self-control that confidence becomes your default, not your defense. Because when you've got control, you don't need to shout. You don't need to prove. You just show up steady, clear, calm, and people respect that without you ever having to ask for it. There's this misunderstanding a lot of people have when they hear act as if nothing bothers you. They think it means you're cold, that you've shut off your emotions, built a wall, and don't let anything in. But that's not what this is about. This isn't about being numb. It's about being wise with what you carry. There's a difference between detaching from something and disconnecting from everything. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care in a way that protects your peace. It means you can see something clearly without getting wrapped around it. You're not avoiding your feelings. You're managing them. And when you start living that way, it's not that things stop affecting you. It's that they stop owning you. We live in a world that constantly tells us to feel everything all the time and react to everything we feel. Someone disrespects you, react. Someone ghosts you, react. Someone cuts you off in traffic, react. And the more you do that, the more you get tied to every little thing happening around you. It becomes this exhausting loop of giving your energy away to things that don't deserve it. But here's the shift. You can care deeply about something and still not let it derail your day. You can love someone and still not let their bad mood become yours. You can want to succeed and still not let every obstacle feel like a personal attack. That's detachment. That's emotional maturity. You're not carrying everything. You're choosing what deserves your weight. And that choice, that boundary, it changes everything. You start responding with clarity instead of reacting from confusion. You start setting limits, not because you're bitter, but because you understand your capacity. You stop internalizing every disappointment, every rude comment, every letdown, not because you don't feel it, but because you know you don't have to hold it. People might not get it at first. They'll say, you've changed or you don't seem to care anymore. But what they're really seeing is a version of you that refuses to be ruled by emotional chaos. A version of you that finally realizes peace is something you have to protect, not something you hand out to every situation that asks for a reaction. And don't get me wrong, it takes practice. This kind of detachment doesn't happen overnight. You'll slip. You'll overthink. You'll get pulled into things you should have walked past. That's okay. The point isn't perfection. The point is awareness. The point is learning to pause long enough to ask yourself, is this mine to carry? And if the answer is no, you let it pass. You're allowed to feel. You're supposed to feel. But your feelings aren't meant to drag you. They're meant to inform you, not enslave you. Detachment gives you that space to observe, to decide, to choose how you show up. And when you start moving like that, you don't need to force anything. You don't need to chase validation or closure or attention. You become your own anchor. That's what acting unbothered really is. It's not apathy. It's alignment. It's saying, I can still show up with love, with presence, with care, but I'm not going to bleed for every cut that wasn't mine. You give yourself permission to feel without folding, to care without crumbling, because at the end of the day, the world doesn't need a version of you that's burnt out from carrying everyone else's weight. It needs a version of you that's steady, clear, grounded, someone who knows how to show up without being swallowed by the noise. And that kind of presence, that's not disconnection, that's growth. There's a difference between reacting and responding. And that difference, small as it might seem, is what separates chaos from clarity, regret from respect, and survival from leadership. Reacting is easy. It's immediate. It's the knee-jerk heat of the moment release that feels good for a second and costs you for days. Responding takes more. It takes restraint. It takes awareness. It takes enough self-control to not let someone else's behavior decide your own. The truth is, most of us were never taught the difference. We were taught to defend ourselves, to speak up, to not let people talk to us like that. And yeah, there's value in standing up for yourself. Absolutely. But there's a way to do that without lighting yourself on fire to prove you've got heat. There's a way to hold your ground without shaking the whole room. You don't owe anyone your immediate reaction. Let me say that again. You don't owe anyone your immediate reaction. Just because someone brings you drama doesn't mean you have to bring it back. Just because someone's raising their voice doesn't mean you need to match their volume. Just because someone's trying to bait you into an argument doesn't mean you have to bite. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. When you react without thinking, you're handing your power to someone else. You're letting them set the tone, set the pace, set the temperature of the moment. You become a mirror instead of a leader. But when you respond, you shift the energy, you slow things down, you stay anchored. And more often than not, that calm presence unsettles people more than any angry outburst ever could. It's not about being passive. It's about being intentional. You might still speak your mind, but you'll do it with control. You might still correct someone, but you'll do it with a tone that's measured. That's how you make your voice land. That's how you get heard. Not just noticed, because let's be honest, most of us regret the things we say when we react. We don't think, we just fire off the first thing that comes to mind. Then later we replay it, wishing we'd said less, said it better, or said nothing at all. When you respond instead of react, you give yourself time to think, to breathe, to choose your words instead of surrendering to your emotions. And it's not just about arguments either. It shows up in everyday moments. That email that rubbed you the wrong way, you don't have to reply in 5 minutes just to prove a point. That text that made your heart race, you can wait. That coworker who keeps pushing your buttons, you can step back. You don't have to answer everything in real time. You're allowed to pause. That pause is where your power lives. When you train yourself to respond, you also create emotional safety for the people around you. They know you're not going to explode. They know you're not going to take their worst moment and match. You become someone they can trust even when things get tense. And that trust, that's influence, that's leadership, that's strength. Here's the thing. Life's going to keep giving you opportunities to react. Every day there's going to be someone who cuts you off, ignores your boundaries, or says something reckless. You can't control that, but you can control how you show up in those moments. You can control how much space you give before you speak. You can control the tone you set in every room you walk into. That's what responding is. It's a choice to lead, not follow, a choice to stay grounded when it would be easier to snap, a choice to be responsible for your energy, even when others aren't responsible for theirs. So the next time someone tries to throw you off, remember their chaos doesn't require your participation. You ever notice how fast everything moves these days? We're wired to respond instantly. Text back, clap back, fire back. Someone says something we don't like, and our instinct is to meet it with energy, with speed, with something that feels like control. But control isn't always found in movement. Sometimes real power lives in stillness, in the pause. The pause is that tiny space between what happens to you and how you decide to handle it. And if you don't protect that space, everything starts to own you. Your emotions, your environment, the people pushing your buttons. But when you learn to pause, you take back the wheel. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. And it's not a long pause. Sometimes it's just a breath, a heartbeat, a moment to ask yourself, is this really worth it? Or who do I want to be right now? That pause becomes your filter. It keeps you from saying things you'll regret, from feeding fires that don't need your wood, from turning a moment of tension into a situation you have to fix later. But let's be real, it's hard. It takes discipline to slow yourself down when everything in you wants to speed up and react. It takes humility to say, I need a second. Instead of diving headfirst into the drama, we confuse quickness with strength. But the truth is, anyone can react fast. It takes real strength to pause, to sit with discomfort long enough to rise above it, instead of sink into it. When you pause, you give your nervous system a chance to catch up. You stop the flood of emotion from taking over the driver's seat. You allow yourself to choose a response that reflects who you are, not just what you feel in that moment. That's what acting unbothered actually looks like. It's not that you didn't feel the pressure. It's that you gave yourself the space to rise above it. And here's what's beautiful about practicing the pause. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes. At first, you'll miss it. You'll snap. And afterwards, you'll think, man, I wish I had taken a breath. But over time, you start to catch yourself mid-thought. You feel the emotion rise. And instead of unleashing it, you inhale. You ground. You shift. That second becomes your superpower. It's not just about conflict either. The pause helps you make better decisions across the board. It keeps you from sending that passive-aggressive email. It gives you a second to think about how your tone might land before you speak. It gives you the chance to ask a question instead of jumping to a conclusion. And in a world that's constantly screaming, act now, you stand out when you don't. There's a maturity that shows up when you don't rush, when you don't flinch, when you don't feel the need to respond to everything the second it happens. People around you feel that energy. It's calming, it's trustworthy, it's magnetic. They start to realize that you're not just reacting to life, you're leading yourself through it. And here's what's powerful. That 1 second pause can change everything. It can de-escalate an argument. It can save a relationship. It can protect your peace. It can stop a situation from becoming something it never needed to be. That's not weakness. That's wisdom in action. You don't need to have all the right words in the moment. You don't need to solve every issue on the spot. You just need to be present enough to pause, to step back, even for a beat, and decide how you want to show up. That decision, that tiny breath of space, is where your control lives. It's where your emotional intelligence grows, and it's where your unshakable presence is built, because the person who pauses before they respond, that's the person everyone listens to. So here's the truth. Acting as if nothing bothers you isn't about being fake or cold or distant. It's about choosing peace over performance. It's about showing up with calm, not because life is easy, but because you refuse to be ruled by everything that tries to shake you. You've learned to carry yourself with control, not because you don't feel, but because you've decided not to be dragged by every feeling. You've stopped chasing reactions and started mastering your responses. You've let go of what's not yours to carry. You've paused long enough to lead, not just survive. And when you live like that, steady, present, grounded, people feel it. Not because you told them you've changed, but because they can see you no longer flinch. You walk in calm.